To our special coverage. Just quickly now, Chamberlain was leading us down the road of the Constitution before we had to take that brief break. So, Prof, your concluding thoughts on the Constitution and where we are?
Making the point that most of the countries that have the kind of features that we have in Nigeria, there's no point reinventing the wheel. There's no way you can go through the way of unitary constitution. And there's nothing like true federalism or forced. You have to go the federal way. Look at India, look at Australia, look at Canada, look at the USA, for example. Like the city of New York, for example, which has a population of close to about 49 or about 40-something million, is the governor of New York State that appoints the commissioner of police and is responsible to him. So that's just one area. Then when you look at the structure, there's no need for you to list the local government in your constitution. It's not going to work, and it's not working. It's all over the country. Local government workers are being held, but they are not creation of the state. Why not allow the state to take control? So in the federal system, you have only two centers of power. You have the federal, then you have the state or the region. Then you can now decide if group of states in the northeast, in the northwest, or north central, or southwest decide to have all the states together. What's the point having 6 commissioners like in the west? West was governed before, the north was governed before, but you have one just premier, you now have multiplicity of governors. And you have multiplicity of administration, and you have to be paid. And that's a drain on your resources. And now with what is happening in the oil sector, though the things are getting more and more, you have to reduce the size of the bureaucracy. So I believe that we can borrow best examples from all over the places. We don't need to start all over again. Look at the countries, which country is going to work the best for. What you want is governance. Even though the times have changed, but the challenges of governance have not changed at all. People still need to feed, they need to eat, they need to be secured. Which is the best level of government where this can be best done? Sit at the federal. So the essence of federalism, in theory and practice, is to make for effectiveness and competition. Is your federalism making you to be competitive when you have to go to Abuja on a regular basis to get something from the central government? You know, federal government, definitely as it is today, has to shed some weight. There has to be some shedding of waste to this, so that you can have other centers where people can look up. Instead of everybody going to Abuja, the table of the president cannot be congested because, look, you have 68 items or so under the exclusive list. How can anybody deal with that? That is huge. That is a lot. Well, you can decentralize and let some go to the state for them to administer, and then you have more effectiveness.
Let me bring in Chief Wazirike. I mean, there's a lot of talk about the Constitution not being handed to us by the military decree. But then we also do remember, if we go down memory lane, in 1998 we had this Constitution Debate Coordinating Committee headed by Justice Nikki Toby, assisted by Dr. Suleiman Kumo. And then at that time, he also said that they received about 405 memoranda from Nigerians at home and abroad. At the end of the day, while their function was to collate and coordinate the views and make recommendations, he then recommended at the time that the common denominator on the matter of Nigerians the world over is the 1979 Constitution. So he said that they recommended an adoption of that 1979 Constitution with relevant amendments from the 1995 draft Constitution. So why do they say it was handed to us by the military?
Well, if you look at that Constitution, it says who signed it. General Abdul Salami Abubakar, head of state of Nigeria. 1963 Constitution was the last one that was autochthonous in the sense that we, the people, military representatives, made that Constitution. So the current Constitution, yes, amended by our own representatives, but was never made by the people. It was a military contraption. And it keeps showing. But because we say change is normal in life, we're supposed to change it as we go. Or, and this I prefer, have a brand new Constitution. At the National Conference in 2014, we made that recommendation. We didn't draft it because we made a recommendation. And it has since been presented to the National Assembly by President Jonathan in 2014 and 2015. And it is left for them to say, we are not going to consider this and say brand new Constitution. Then we say this is our Constitution. As it is, the military in their wisdom did some things. Let us, being civilians also, do our own things in the way we want to do without looking at the military. In a simple language, like Prof said, why should somebody in Abuja decide how many local governments will be here?
Speaking of Abuja, Chief Wazirike, let me go to Abuja and to Mr. Shehu, Garba Shehu. Why will the federal government not consider the 2014 National Conference report?
Because it was not an inclusive conference. And you very well recall that the leaders of our own party, whether ACN and all of that, and the governors were missing from that conference. And a lot of criticism had been made, and about which the then administration was adamant. This conference was lopsided in terms of representation, ethnically, religiously, regionally, and they were insensitive about all of these things. And they want to force it down the throats of everyone. So that's why it's a problem.
That it is willing for those who have views on how to restructure the governance portfolio of the country or the governance profile of the country to use the National Assembly. But is it possible for the National Assembly to bring into being a brand new constitution which, depending on what the people want, may actually affect the position of the National Assembly itself and the entrenched powers therein? Do you think that's feasible?
Well, let me first of all say that, and I hope you will also make the same admission, that the members of the Nigerian National Assembly, they are not aliens, and they don't come from the moon. They are Nigerians, and they are representing definite constituencies in all of the states of the Federation. So they are serving the purpose of representation. Why can't they be trusted? I think the problem is coming from the fact, two things. One is that I think that, well, again, it's not that I have no respect for older people, but there are people who think that they have messed up this country so much that they now want to resolve the problems that they themselves created before their lifetime ends, and they're in a hurry to do that. Otherwise, democracy is a slow process, all right, but it is a self-correcting process. People are saying that we have all of the people in the National Assembly are idiots. So let's wait for 2019, and then let's put people who are not idiots there. But otherwise, if you believe in democracy, if you're not a promoter of militocracy, because it's the military who taught some of these noisemakers that things can be done overnight, decree, and then it's promulgated and becomes law. But we have a process. So we should respect the parliament unless we are saying we are no longer a democracy. Then let's go and say we will choose dictatorship.
Now, Mr. Lehman, Galtima Lehman, you're going to have the final word on this segment. You've listened to all the other guests and, of course, the disparate opinions there. But you have been in the trenches yourself. I dare say that amongst all of us seated here, you are the only person who has actually been a candidate for the presidency. And therefore, you might have some actual experience about what this is about. What's your own take?
You see, first of all, when I was in a mosque, when they were condemning the Nigerian constitution, and I made it a point, I think about 3 or 4 weeks ago, to go and buy the constitution and read it. I've been reading it. And believe me, a thorough work was done. It's not like it was something, a document that was, planted, forced down the throat of Nigerians. Seminars were held. I found out when I read it, and, memoranda submitted and all that kind of a thing and all that. But having said this, the representation in the parliament, as Manan Garba has rightly said, is the constitutional means to do so. But the reality is that the senators, the House of Rep members, the way the system threw them and presented them as it is, was not the kind of system that the Nigerians would have expected, because the electoral process itself needed some kind of changes and all that kind of thing. But quickly, as you said, I should say the final word. If you look at the underpinning problem of this country, it's not really about structuring and all that kind of. Look, I drove all the way from, let's say, Mocha down to Bida, then Bida to Mina, Mina down to Abuja. Look, Nigerians are talking about practical realities, which I believe His Excellency, if he addresses them within this short period of time, this issue about restructuring and all these other things, the roads are bad. Unemployment issues, I was listening to him and he said, oh, look, he's going to have about 10,000 employment opportunities in the States. Yeah, I believe that's a drop in the ocean. Nigerians are thinking in terms of how they are going to have the aggregate economy within a short period of time, transformed. And that's why when His Excellency came on board, a lot of people trekked from Lagos down there expecting humongous changes, and still he can do them. What do you need to do to, like in the South, the potholes making businesses completely very difficult between Lagos and this, So if he can frontally deal with those fundamental issues, all this talks about, restructuring is neither here nor there. There are countries that we don't even have constitution. Like Britain, I understand they don't even have the constitution. It's, so basically, what are the elements? They have a constitution. Nigerians are not taking away the documents. What can they have on the bread, on the table? And that's the reality. That's the man in the trenches that you're talking about. The reality is that Nigerians want light, they want water, and they believe that within this short period of time, His Excellency should be in a position, having addressed the security issues, having addressed the corruption issues, whether it's this chief judge that is very popular. What's his name again?
Salami.
Salami, yes, exactly. That Nigerians are going to address, where Buhari is going to address the corruption issue frontally, and I think by the time it is 2019, if he is able to do that within this short period, I don't think there will be anybody who will be strong enough to contest against him. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before we round up this segment, Ijoma, you have some breaking news.
Yeah, indeed. Something's just coming into us here. Now, the police have rescued, abducted Assistant Commissioner of Police, that's Emmanuel Agene, who was kidnapped by gunmen along the Benin-Gwari Futua Road last week. The Kaduna State Commissioner of Police, who confirmed the rescue, told journalists that the ACP was rescued today in Benin-Gwari village, Kaduna State. ACP Agene was until his abduction on Wednesday, September the 28th, serving with the Criminal Investigation Department of Zamfara State Police Command. Just to say once again that the ACP Emmanuel Agene, who was kidnapped by gunmen along the Benin-Gwari Futua Road last week, has now been rescued. So
that's it. So all that remains for us is to thank our guests. Let me start this time from our Abuja studios, Mr. Kaltima Lehman and Alhaji Garba Shehu. Thank you very much for coming to our special program today. Here in our studios, Professor Lai Olurode and Chief Godi Wazuruke, thank you so much for being our guests today. And I'm sure we've all taken something or the other from your various contributions. We'll go on a break now, and when we come back, we'll move on to our next
It's going to be the economy.
The economy, that's bread and butter issues.
More likely security.